Ever feel exhausted chasing things that don't truly matter? Like no matter how much you achieve, acquire, or impress, there's always something else just out of reach, that gnawing sense that you're running on a treadmill, pouring energy into pursuits that leave you emptier than before. Here's the hard truth: most of what we chase, social validation, material wealth, the perfect image, doesn't bring lasting fulfillment. But what if there was a way to step off that treadmill, to find a deeper kind of peace that isn't tied to external validation? That's where Stoicism comes in. This ancient philosophy, practiced by everyone from Roman emperors to modern-day leaders, offers a radical alternative: the art of focusing only on what you can control and letting go of the rest. It's not about giving up ambition, it's about redirecting it toward what truly matters. Think about the last time you scrolled through social media, comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel. Or the moment you bought something new, only to feel that fleeting high fade faster than the packaging hit the trash. We're conditioned to believe happiness lies just beyond the next milestone, the next purchase, the next like. But Stoics understood something profound 2,000 years ago that we're still struggling to grasp today. Real freedom isn't in getting more, it's in needing less. It's in cultivating an unshakable inner stability that doesn't rise and fall with external circumstances, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. In this video, we'll explore 25 Stoic attitudes that embody the I don't chase mentality. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical ways to reclaim your peace, your time, and your energy from the endless chase. You'll learn how to spot the traps of modern life that keep you running in circles, and more importantly, how to step out of them with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth isn't up for debate. Whether it's the pressure to keep up appearances, the fear of missing out, or the relentless pursuit of more, these Stoic principles offer a lifeline. By the end, you'll have a toolkit to navigate life with clarity, purpose, and most importantly, the freedom that comes when you stop chasing what was never meant to fulfill you in the first place. The first Stoic attitude that signals you've stopped chasing: embracing impermanence, not as a harsh truth to fear, but as a liberating reality to lean into. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, often reflected on this in his private writings. Picture him on the front lines of battle, surrounded by chaos, yet reminding himself that everything he saw, the empires, the armies, even his own life, was as fleeting as leaves blown by the wind. He didn't see this as depressing. Instead, he found freedom in it. When you truly internalize that nothing lasts, not wealth, not status, not even the relationships we cling to, you stop pouring energy into trying to freeze life in place. The desperation to hold onto things, it fades. The fear of missing out, it loses its grip. Take Seneca's letters to his friend Lucilius, where he writes about losing his own wealth overnight. Most people would panic, scramble to recover what was gone, but Seneca's response was different. He treated it like a test. Was his happiness ever really tied to those things in the first place? When he realized it wasn't, the loss didn't devastate him. That's the power of accepting impermanence. You start to see possessions, achievements, even social approval for what they are: temporary guests in your life, not permanent fixtures. Here's the practical shift. Instead of fearing change, you begin to expect it. A job loss, a friendship fading, a plan falling apart. These aren't personal failures. They're just life unfolding as it always does. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of fate. When you stop resisting the natural flow of things, you stop exhausting yourself trying to control what was never yours to keep. That's when you realize the chase was never about the external thing. It was about your own resistance to letting go. Think about how much mental energy we waste trying to preserve moments, secure guarantees, or avoid inevitable endings. Now imagine redirecting that energy toward what can't be taken from you: your character, your values, your ability to adapt. That's the paradox. By accepting that everything changes, you gain something unshakable. No more frantic scrambling to hold onto sand as it slips through your fingers. Instead, you learn to appreciate the grains while they're there and release them without despair when they're gone. This attitude isn't about detachment or cold indifference. It's about engagement without obsession. You can enjoy success without fearing failure. You can love deeply without clinging. You can pursue goals without staking your worth on them. The difference: you're no longer chasing illusions of permanence in a world built on flux. You're living fully, freely, right in the heart of the storm, unafraid of the wind. The second Stoic attitude that frees you from the chase: understanding the difference between what you control and what you don't, and investing your energy accordingly. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, put it bluntly: some things are within our power while others are not. Your opinions, your actions, your values. Those are yours to command, but outcomes, other people's reactions, external validation, those belong to the realm of the unpredictable. The modern world tricks us into obsessing over the wrong column, tracking likes as if they measure worth, stressing over promotions as if they define capability, fretting over opinions we can't change. Stoicism flips the script: pour yourself into the effort, then release your grip on the result. Consider how differently two people might approach a job interview. The first candidate spends days agonizing over whether they'll be chosen, rehearsing answers to please the panel, checking their phone compulsively for a callback. The second prepares thoroughly, then sleeps soundly knowing they've done their part. The rest isn't up to them. Same situation, entirely different emotional toll. This isn't passive resignation, it's strategic focus. When you shift your attention to the quality of your work rather than the applause it might bring, you're no longer hostage to unpredictable rewards. The irony: this mindset often improves outcomes anyway. A musician passionate about their craft practices for the love of playing, not standing ovations, yet that authenticity draws audiences. A writer focused on truth rather than virality crafts work that lingers in minds long after clickbait fades. The Stoics called this the art of acquiescence, not fighting reality but working with it. Your resume is within your control. Whether the hiring manager prefers blue or black ink on it is not. Try this journaling exercise tonight. Divide a page into 2 columns. On the left, list what you're worrying about: a strained relationship, a pending decision, a project's reception. On the right, ask, which parts of this can I actually influence? You'll often find the bulk of your stress lives in the territory you've mistaken as yours. Freedom comes when you stop trying to manage the weather and start carrying an umbrella. Modern culture confuses control with responsibility. You're not responsible for stock market crashes or traffic jams, just as you can't control who likes your post or whether your boss recognizes your effort. But you're fully responsible for how you show up, your preparation, your attitude, your integrity. That's where your power lies. When you stop measuring your worth by metrics that flicker like faulty streetlights, you start building something no algorithm can diminish: the quiet certainty that you did what mattered regardless of who noticed. This isn't about lowering standards, it's about raising perspective. The athlete can't control the referee's call, but they can master their training regimen. The artist can't force gallery owners to admire their work, but they can hone their technique with obsessive care. Detaching from outcomes isn't surrender, it's claiming the only ground that was ever truly yours. And when you stand there solid, unshaken by external winds, you'll realize how exhausting the chase really was. The race you were running, you're no longer in it. You're somewhere deeper, somewhere quieter, where the scoreboard doesn't reach. The third attitude that liberates you from the endless chase: redefining what enough means, not by accumulating more, but by wanting less. Seneca, one of Stoicism's sharpest minds, put it plainly: it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor. That single sentence cuts through the noise of modern consumer culture like a scalpel. We're bombarded daily with messages insisting happiness lives just beyond the next purchase, the next promotion, the next lifestyle upgrade. But Stoicism flips that script. True wealth isn't in your bank account or closet. It's in your ability to sit with what you already have and feel no hunger for excess. Picture two people standing before the same sunset. One is distracted, scrolling through photos of tropical vacations they can't afford, convinced their moment would be better if it looked like someone else's. The other is utterly present, absorbing the colors, the stillness, the gift of being alive to witness it. Same sky, entirely different experience. This is the heart of Seneca's wisdom. Richness isn't about adding more to your life, it's about subtracting the compulsive need for more. Modern economics thrives on manufactured discontent. Social media amplifies it by turning everyone's highlight reel into your measuring stick. But Stoics practiced something radical: negative visualization. Before bed, they'd mentally lose what they cherished: their health, their home, their loved ones. Not to dwell in gloom, but to jolt themselves awake to gratitude. Try it tonight. What if your phone vanished, your job, your safe, warm bed? Suddenly, ordinary things shimmer with value you'd overlooked in the hunt for the extraordinary. This isn't about settling or stifling ambition. It's about distinguishing growth from greed, wanting to master a skill, noble, needing the newest gadget to feel validated. A trap. The difference lies in where you anchor your worth. Ancient Stoics lived this. Musonius Rufus, teaching philosophy in a simple tunic while Roman elites draped themselves in silks, proved luxury adds nothing to wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire from a military tent, wrote that joy could flourish anywhere, even in a barren field. Here's the litmus test: when you remove the external props, the titles, the possessions, the approval, does your sense of self crumble? If so, you've been chasing the wrong things. Real security comes when you can say, like Epictetus, "Give me a barley cake and water, and I will rival Zeus for happiness." That's not deprivation, it's emancipation. The moment you stop believing life owes you more, you discover you already had everything required for peace. Practical shift. Start a enough journal. Each morning, list 3 things you'd typically take for granted: running water, a friend's laugh, the ability to read. Then ask, if I lost this today, what would I pay to get it back? Suddenly, the ordinary reveals itself as extraordinary. This practice doesn't erase goals, it grounds them. You'll still strive, but without the quiet desperation of believing fulfillment lives elsewhere. Society whispers that contentment is the enemy of achievement. Stoics knew better. It's the foundation. When you're no longer frantically filling inner voids with external things, your energy redirects toward what actually matters. The artist creates for the love of creating. The leader serves for the sake of service. No more chasing shadows, just walking, eyes open through the sunlight already here. The 4th Stoic attitude that breaks the cycle of chasing: rejecting victimhood, not by denying hardship exists, but by refusing to let it define you. Marcus Aurelius faced more adversity before breakfast than most of us encounter in a year. Chronic illness, betrayals by trusted advisors, wars threatening Rome's borders. Yet his private journals reveal zero self-pity. Instead, he wrote, "The obstacle becomes the way," transforming every setback into fuel for growth. This is amor fati in action, not just accepting fate, but embracing it as the raw material for becoming who you're meant to be. Modern resilience research now confirms what Stoics knew. How we frame adversity determines its power over us. A job rejection can either be proof you're inadequate or data for improvement. A failed relationship can leave you bitter or teach you about boundaries. The event itself doesn't dictate your response, your interpretation does. Imagine 2 employees laid off from the same company. One spirals into, "Why does this always happen to me?" while the other asks, "What skills can I build while job hunting?" Same circumstance, entirely different trajectories. This isn't toxic positivity pretending pain doesn't exist. Stoicism acknowledges suffering, then asks, "Now what?" When Epictetus, who was literally enslaved, said, It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. He spoke from brutal experience. His philosophy didn't erase his chains. It showed him where his freedom still lived in his mind. Modern parallels abound. The athlete who uses injury recovery time to study game strategy. The artist who channels heartbreak into potent lyrics. The entrepreneur whose failed venture becomes their masterclass. Practical shift. Next time you hit a setback, try the Stoic reframing drill. First, name the emotion. I feel humiliated by that presentation. Then strip the judgment to reveal bare facts. 75% of my talk engaged the audience. The technical glitch during the demo derailed the closing. Finally, ask, how does this help me improve? Suddenly, the disaster becomes actionable feedback. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, writing, "Today I shall meet interference, ingratitude, arrogance, but none of these things can deflect me." Society often rewards victim narratives. Outrage gets clicks, blame earns sympathy, but Stoicism offers something far more empowering: agency. When a project collapses, you control the post-mortem analysis. When someone betrays you, you command whether it hardens or deepens your wisdom. This attitude terrifies external forces that profit from your reactivity: advertisers, algorithms, drama peddlers. A person who can't be made to feel cheated by life, that's someone who can't be manipulated into chasing quick fixes. The beauty of this mindset, it turns life's inevitable stumbles into a hidden curriculum. Every flat tire teaches patience, every critique sharpens discernment. Even loss, the universal human experience Stoics called the tuition we pay for living, becomes a harsh but honest professor. Watch what happens when you stop seeing yourself as the target of misfortune and start viewing challenges as the universe's way of sanding down your rough edges. The chase for a pain-free life ends and the real work of living begins. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of intention, the fifth Stoic attitude that frees you from the chase. Choosing thoughtful speech over gossip, recognizing that words aren't neutral, they shape realities. Marcus Aurelius called idle talk a waste of breath, not because he was antisocial, but because he saw how easily chatter dilutes focus and integrity. In a world where drama is currents, where tweets ignite feuds and group chats become battlegrounds, Stoicism offers a radical alternative: the discipline of speaking only what improves the silence. Think about the last time you participated in gossip. Maybe it felt harmless in the moment, a comment about a co-worker's promotion, a friend's relationship drama, a celebrity scandal. But step back. What did it cost you? Time, certainly. Mental energy, absolutely. But more than that, it trained your mind to feed on external narratives rather than cultivate inner clarity. Social media amplifies this tenfold, rewarding hot takes over reflection, outrage over understanding. The Stoics knew this trap well. Epictetus warned his students, if someone speaks badly of you, instead of defending yourself, prove them wrong through your actions. Not because reputation doesn't matter, but because your character isn't up for debate in the court of public opinion. Here's the pivot: replace gossip with mindful listening. Ancient Stoics practiced this in Roman marketplaces, training themselves to observe conversations without being pulled into pettiness. You can do the same today. Next time you're tempted to dissect someone's choices, ask, does this conversation serve any purpose beyond momentary entertainment? If not, steer it toward substance or step away. This isn't about policing every word, it's about recognizing that speech is energy. Pour it into building rather than tearing down. Consider the contrast. Person A spends lunch break speculating about their boss's divorce. Person B uses that time to discuss a book on emotional intelligence. 5 years later, one is fluent in other people's business. The other has sharpened skills that transform their career. Small choices compound. Seneca put it bluntly: associate with those who will improve you, not just entertain you. In an era where podcasts dissect private lives and comment sections thrive on conflict, selective silence becomes rebellion. Practical shift: try the Stoic 3 gates test before speaking. Ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If any gate closes, let the thought pass. You'll be stunned by how much mental clutter clears when you stop renting space in your mind to trivialities. Social media conditions us to react instantly. Stoicism teaches us to respond intentionally. Scroll past the drama instead of clicking. Leave the group chat that thrives on negativity. Redirect conversations gently but firmly when they veer into toxicity. The deeper truth: gossip isn't just about others, it's a distraction from our own unresolved growth. When Zeno, founder of Stoicism, overheard students mocking someone's failures, he didn't shame them. Instead, he told a story about a man who criticized a shipwrecked sailor only to drown himself the next week. The lesson: judgment is often projection. What we critique in others frequently mirrors what we fear in ourselves. Silence creates space to face those shadows rather than outsourcing discomfort onto easy targets. This attitude tarries the attention economy, which profits from our impulse to react, judge, and consume drama. A person who refuses to play, that's someone who can't be baited into useless conflicts or sold solutions to manufactured problems. Your words become like Marcus' journal: intentional, measured, worth the breath it takes to speak them. The result isn't isolation, it's deeper connection. When people realize you won't traffic in rumors, they start bringing you ideas instead. Conversations shift from "did you hear about" to "what do you think about?" That's when you realize silence wasn't empty space. It was the fertile ground where real dialogue could finally grow. Imagine spending years crafting something meaningful: a book, a business, a piece of art, only to have its worth determined by the volume of strangers' applause. That's the modern dilemma Stoics saw coming 2,000 years ago. The sixth attitude that frees you from the chase: treating praise like weather, something to observe passing by, not something to build your house upon. Epictetus, who watched Rome's elites hunger for public adoration, compared applause to the clattering of pots, a loud but empty noise that fades as quickly as it rises. His point wasn't that recognition is evil, but that mistaking it for nourishment leaves you spiritually malnourished. Today's influencer culture magnifies this trap. Likes become dopamine hits, follow accounts morph into status symbols, and viral moments are treated as existential validations. But flip the lens. When you post something online, are you sharing because it aligns with your values, or because you're secretly hoping for that notification surge? The Stoic test is simple. If you received zero external feedback, would the act still feel worthwhile? A musician composing in an empty room, a writer journaling knowing no one will read it, a teacher preparing lessons even if no one acknowledges their effort. These are the real rebels in a world addicted to metrics. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor. Crowds cheered his every move, poets penned flattering verses, yet his private journals reveal a man more concerned with whether he'd shown patience with a difficult senator than whether the masses approved. He wrote, "It's ridiculous not to escape from your own vices, which is possible, while trying to escape the vices of others, which is impossible." Translation: wasting energy managing others' opinions is like rearranging furniture on a sinking ship. Here's the shift: replace praise dependence with self-auditing. Each night, ask not how many people noticed me today, but did I act with integrity? Did I contribute something meaningful? The ancient Stoics called this the inner citadel, a private court where your actions are judged by your own standards, not the fickle tastes of the crowd. Modern psychology backs this. Studies show that people who tie self-worth to external validation experience higher anxiety and lower resilience. Why? Because applause is unreliable currency. One day you're trending, the next you're yesterday's hashtag. Practical exercise: try creating something purely for itself. Cook a meal without photographing it. Write a poem and immediately delete it. Take a walk without tracking your steps. These small acts rewire the brain's reward system, teaching it to find joy in the doing rather than the display. Epictetus trained his students this way, making them debate in empty rooms before allowing public speeches. If you can remain calm when no one's watching, he said, you'll never be a slave to their cheers. The irony, detaching from praise often earns deeper respect. Think of figures like Einstein or Van Gogh, who worked from inner curiosity long before the world caught up. Contrast that with today's praise junkies, politicians changing positions for polls, artists chasing algorithms, co-workers reshaping personalities for promotions. Their hunger for approval makes them predictable, manipulable, but someone who can't be bought with flattery, that's someone who can't be controlled. This isn't about rejecting kindness or constructive feedback. It's about recognizing that praise and criticism are two sides of the same unstable coin. Seneca warned his friend Lucilius, if you believe the crowd when they call you great, you must believe them when they call you worthless. The solution. Be your own most discerning critic and your own most merciful judge. When you know your true worth, no amount of clattering pots can drown out that quiet certainty. Imagine waking up deliberately to a cold shower instead of reaching for the snooze button, or choosing plain oats for breakfast when you could have pancakes dripping with syrup. These weren't just quirky habits for ancient Stoics, they were deliberate drills to inoculate themselves against life's inevitable discomforts. The seventh attitude that shatters the chase. Voluntary discomfort, not as self-punishment, but as a way to prove to yourself that you're tougher than circumstances. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, regularly slept on hard floors and wore threadbare clothes. Why? To remind himself that true security doesn't come from velvet pillows, but from the unshakable knowledge that you can handle roughness when it comes. This practice echoes in modern minimalism. Think of tech CEOs wearing the same black turtleneck daily or adventurers living out of backpacks. But Stoicism takes it deeper. It's not just about decluttering your closet. It's about dismantling the fear that you need certain conditions to be okay. When you voluntarily skip a meal, you're not just practicing fasting. You're proving hunger won't break you. When you walk in the rain without complaining, you're training your mind to meet adversity without crumbling. The goal isn't suffering for its own sake. It's discovering that happiness isn't as fragile as consumer culture insists. Try this for 1 week. Design your own Stoic Simplicity Challenge. Start small. Leave your phone in another room during meals. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Wear your oldest, most comfortable clothes to a social event. Notice what happens when luxury isn't an option. At first, it might feel like deprivation, but soon you'll hit a turning point the moment you realize discomfort hasn't killed you. That's the revelation. Most of what we chase is just padding against imagined catastrophes. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, preparing for worst-case scenarios by living through milder versions voluntarily. Modern life conspires to make everything effortless: instant deliveries, temperature-controlled rooms, endless entertainment. Yet studies show people in comfortable prisons of their own making often feel more anxious. Why? Because deep down, they suspect they've lost the ability to cope without their creature comforts. Contrast that with someone who's voluntarily endured a freezing lake plunge or a digital detox. Their confidence doesn't hinge on external conditions. They know viscerally that they can adapt. The irony, voluntary discomfort often heightens joy. That first sip of coffee after a week without caffeine, divine. The warm bed after a night camping in the cold, pure bliss. By periodically resetting your baseline, you short-circuit hedonic adaptation, that nagging phenomenon where new cars and bigger homes quickly lose their luster. Musonius Rufus put it bluntly, how can anyone think themselves rich when they're always craving more? Here's the key: don't just endure discomfort, study it. When you're hungry, observe how your mind invents justifications to quit early. When you're cold, notice the stories you tell yourself about suffering. These are the same mental traps that convince you need luxury cars to feel respected or designer labels to belong. By facing them in controlled doses, you build immunity to the marketing messages whispering that you're incomplete without the next upgrade. The ultimate test: next time you face genuine hardship, a job loss, a breakup, an illness, you won't panic. You'll have already proven through countless small trials that you contain depths of resilience no circumstance can bankrupt. That's the real freedom, not running from lack, but knowing you can thrive within it. What if everything you've been taught about status is backwards? That the titles, corner offices, and ceremonial robes we chase might actually be cages disguised as trophies. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who could have dined with emperors but chose to live like a beggar, saw through the illusion. Titles are empty labels, he said, no more meaningful than the dust collecting on a statue's pedestal. In a world where LinkedIn profiles read like Hunger Games and job introductions become mini power plays, his words land like a splash of cold water. Status anxiety isn't new, it's just been repackaged. The Roman senator Cato the Younger made a spectacle of wearing plain, undyed wool to official functions while his peers strutted in purple-bordered togas. It wasn't poverty theater, it was a live demonstration that real authority doesn't need costumes. Fast forward 2,000 years and the theater just has better lighting. Modern workplaces thrive on invisible hierarchies, job titles etched on glass doors, parking spots denoting worth, the unspoken rule that the higher your floor, the more important your ideas. But here's the Stoic reality check. No amount of external validation can fill an internal void. Picture two colleagues. One spends weekends networking solely to inch up the org chart, calibrating every conversation for political advantage. The other focuses on mastery, solving complex problems, mentoring juniors, finding joy in the work itself. Who do you think sleeps better at night, who's truly free? Corporate culture thrives on manufactured scarcity. Only 10% can be top performers, only 1 can be CEO. Stoicism offers an escape hatch from this rigged game. When you stop conflating position with purpose, you start noticing the quiet power of the freelance developer who turns down Silicon Valley offers to build tools for nonprofits. The tenured professor who chooses a modest office over administrative pomp. Even the CEO who measures success by employee growth rather than press coverage. These aren't people who failed to climb, they're people who redefined the mountain. Try this mental exercise next time status envy creeps in. Imagine your ideal obituary. Will it list your job titles, or will it describe the lives you impacted, the problems you solved, the integrity you never compromised? That's the difference between climbing a ladder and building something that lasts. Cato knew it when he let his rivals take the ceremonial robes while he kept the moral high ground. Today's equivalent might be bypassing the vanity project to do substantive work, or rejecting a promotion that would sacrifice your values for a fancier email signature. The real rebellion isn't refusing to play the game, it's changing how you keep score. Musonius didn't preach poverty, he proved that freedom grows when your happiness isn't mortgaged to others' opinions. Those corner office windows, they're just glass, the title on your door, just letters. The respect you earn by being unshakably yourself, that's the kind of currency no market crash can devalue. There's a practice the ancient Stoics used that might sound morbid at first until you realize it's one of the most liberating tools ever devised. They called it Memento Mori, the intentional remembrance that death awaits us all. Not as some grim fixation, but as a daily whisper to stop squandering life on what doesn't matter. Picture Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the known world, writing this to himself at dawn. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Imagine carrying that awareness into your morning commute, your inbox, your endless scroll through social media. Suddenly, the petty grievances, the envy, the trivial chases, they lose their grip. Modern culture does everything to distract us from mortality. We overdose on entertainment, numb ourselves with busy work, and treat aging like a glitch to be fixed. But the Stoics knew avoidance was the real trap. By leaning into life's brevity, they discovered a paradoxical superpower, the ability to live with urgency and peace. Think of it like an hourglass. Most people panic as the sand runs down, frantically trying to flip it over. Stoics train themselves to watch the flow calmly, asking, "Is this how I want to spend my grains?" Today's version of Memento Mori might be a digital detox, but with a twist. Instead of just unplugging for productivity, you step away to remember, one day my accounts will go silent. What do I want my actual life to say? Modern apps are designed to make minutes vanish like smoke. Death awareness is the antidote. It turns time from something you kill into something you honor. A CEO who keeps a skull replica on his desk, yes, this is a real practice among some Silicon Valley types, isn't being edgy. He's conditioning himself to ask, will this meeting matter when I'm gone? The magic lies in specificity. General thoughts about death don't change behavior, vivid ones do. Seneca had his students write their own eulogies, not as morbid exercises but as reality checks. If today were the end, would my story satisfy me? You can adapt this now. Try writing a mock obituary highlighting how you actually spend your hours commuting, complaining, consuming. Then rewrite it to reflect the life you want to have lived. The gap between the two is your compass. This isn't about macabre fixation. It's about weeding the garden of your life with ruthless love, the colleague's snide comment. Irrelevant in the face of eternity, the obsession with collecting accolades, meaningless when you picture your name fading on a plaque, but that neglected creative project. The quiet conversation with a grieving friend, the morning you spent fully present with your child, that sand stays in the hourglass. Critics argue this mindset breeds hedonism. If nothing lasts, why not indulge? But Stoics found the opposite. Confronting mortality doesn't make you reckless, it makes you selective. When you know the museum is closing soon, you don't waste time in rooms that don't move you. You seek the art that takes your breath away. That's the secret shift. Memento Mori isn't a reminder that life is short. It's a reminder that life is yours. The chasing ends when you realize no one on their deathbed ever wished they'd spent more hours polishing their persona for strangers. The freedom begins when you stop living as if you have unlimited time to start tomorrow. Traffic hasn't moved in 20 minutes, your phone battery's dying, the air conditioning's broken, and the person behind you keeps leaning on their horn. This is the moment when most people erupt, venting about idiots who can't drive, the city's terrible infrastructure, the universe's personal vendetta against their schedule. But Seneca would have seen something else entirely, a perfect classroom. The Stoic teacher who faced exile, chronic illness, and eventual execution by his own student didn't waste breath cursing obstacles. He wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," then got to work solving what he could. That's attitude 10, replacing complaint with constructive action, because frustration is just wasted focus wearing a disguise. Modern psychology confirms what Seneca knew: complaining rewires the brain for helplessness. Every rant about the traffic jam reinforces neural pathways that say, "I'm powerless," while every constructive response, adjusting your route, calling ahead to reschedule, even using the time for an audio lesson, strengthens the muscle of agency. The difference isn't in the circumstance, it's in the pivot. Picture two colleagues handed a chaotic project. One spends meetings listing why it's doomed, the other circulates a draft solution by lunch. Both face the same mess, but only one emerges stronger from it. Stoics had a crisis protocol for these moments, starting with 3 questions. What's within my control? What's the smallest step forward? What can this teach me? Imagine applying this to the traffic jam. You can't unclog the highway, but you can turn off the engine to save gas control. You can map alternative routes for next time's step. You might realize you've been leaving too late for buffer time lesson. Suddenly, the inconvenience becomes a drill for more consequential challenges. This isn't toxic positivity pretending everything's fine. Seneca's letters acknowledge pain, then immediately shift to what now? When his friend Lucilius wrote grieving a betrayal, Seneca didn't dismiss his hurt. He agreed the wound was real, then handed him philosophical tools to clean it. Misfortune is virtue's opportunity. Modern parallels abound. The entrepreneur whose failed launch becomes a case study, the athlete who uses injury rehab to study game theory. Complaints end where creativity begins. Try this reframe next time you're stuck. Mentally replace "why is this happening to me" with "why is this happening for me?" The delayed flight becomes forced downtime to read. The rude customer service rep trains your patience. Even chronic pain, something Seneca endured, can teach detachment from the body's whims. The key is moving from spectator to participant in your own life. Society conditions us to outsource solutions. Social media rewards venting with likes. Workplaces bond over shared grievances. But Stoicism spotlights the hidden cost. Every minute spent complaining is a minute stolen from building. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during plague and war by asking daily, "What's needed here?" Not "who's to blame." His journals don't whine about barbarian invasions. They detail supply chain fixes and morale strategies. Practical shift, carry Seneca's action trigger. When you catch yourself complaining aloud or mentally, pause and complete this sentence. Which means I need to. My boss overloaded me, which means I need to prioritize tasks and request clarity. My partner's distracted, which means I need to schedule a focused conversation. This tiny hinge swings the mind from victim to architect, the ultimate test. Watch how quickly your environment changes when you do. Colleagues start bringing you solutions instead of problems. Friends mirror your proactive energy. Even traffic jams become what you make them, a nuisance or a masterclass in patience. The obstacles don't vanish, but your relationship to them transforms. And that's when you realize the real bottleneck was never the traffic. It was your belief that moving fast was the only way forward. In the middle of a heated Senate debate, a political rival once hurled every insult imaginable at Cato the Younger, accusing him of corruption, drunkenness, even incest. When the tirade ended, Cato simply resumed his speech as if nothing had happened. His colleague later asked why he didn't defend himself. His reply, "It's more shameful to utter such lies than to hear them." This is Stoic non-reactivity in its purest form, not suppressing anger, but recognizing that insults only hold power if you accept them as currency. Marcus Aurelius refined this further in his journals, writing, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." Not clapbacks, not passive aggression, but an unshakable calm that reveals the insult's emptiness. Modern life bombards us with more subtle daggers, snide comments wrapped as jokes, backhanded compliments in boardrooms, anonymous hate online. The temptation to engage is strong because society equates retaliation with strength, but Stoics saw deeper when Epictetus taught, if someone tried to hand you a rotten fig, would you take it? Then why accept their rotten words? He revealed insults for what they are, gifts you can refuse. Imagine a coworker jokingly undermines your presentation. The crowd watches your reaction. Most people take the fig, firing back or fuming silently. The Stoic leaves it on the table. Interesting perspective, they might say, before redirecting to substance. No audience, no drama. This isn't about being a doormat. It's strategic detachment. Marcus described insults as stones thrown at a statue. They can't make it bleed, only prove the thrower's aim is poor. Apply this to online trolls. Every reply fuels them, silence starves them. The Roman general Scipio Africanus kept a box of unopened hate letters labeled for burning on bad days. His modern equivalent might be the entrepreneur who screenshots vile DMs not to dwell, but to laugh at how worked up strangers get over someone they'll never meet. Try this mental drill next time words sting. Picture the insult written in sand at low tide. Watch how quickly the waves erase it. then ask, does this person's opinion shape my reality? If a toddler called you a bad driver, you'd chuckle. Why grant more weight to someone whose judgment you wouldn't trust in other matters? Seneca took this further, suggesting we thank critics for revealing our hidden insecurities. If a remark lands hard, it often touches a nerve we didn't know was exposed. That's valuable intel for self-growth, the ultimate power move, redirecting the energy. When a Greek philosopher was spat on in public, he wiped his face and said, "I knew the rain was coming, but I didn't expect such saliva." Humor disarms without degradation. Modern version, a designer receives a scathing email calling their work amateurish. Instead of rebutting, they reply, "Appreciate the passion. What specifically would elevate it to professional standards?" Either they get constructive feedback, rare, or reveal their critique was performative, common. Either way, you win by refusing to play the expected game. At its core, non-reactivity is about sovereignty over your inner world. As Marcus wrote, you own your mind even if others claim your body. Every unclaimed insult is a vote for that truth. The office gossip, the keyboard warrior, the passive-aggressive in-law, they're all shouting into a canyon. Whether you choose to echo their noise is entirely up to you. There's a quiet rebellion in choosing to sit alone with your thoughts when the world insists you should be scrolling, networking, or performing happiness for an audience. Epictetus, who spent his youth in slavery before becoming one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, called solitude the ultimate test of self-possession. If you're ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize you've lost your way. He wasn't dismissing connection, he was exposing the cultural lie that solitude equals loneliness, rather than the sacred space where we meet ourselves. Modern psychology backs this. Studies show people who fear being alone are more prone to conformity, while those comfortable in silence demonstrate higher creativity and emotional resilience. The difference lies in framing. Society whispers that an empty calendar is a failure. Stoics saw it as a masterclass in self-reliance. Consider how we've pathologized solo time. Offices assume remote workers crave water cooler chats. Restaurants pity table for one, diners, social media screams, post proof you're loved or risk irrelevance. Contrast this with Marcus Aurelius, who wrote his profoundest insights not in court among admirers, but on battlefronts during stolen moments of stillness. His journals reveal a man who cherished solitude like a sparring partner, sometimes brutal, always clarifying. This isn't antisocial behavior, it's anti-slavery behavior. Freedom from the hunger for constant validation begins when you stop conflating aloneness with abandonment. Practical shift, create a morning ritual untouched by external voices. Before checking phones or news, spend 10 minutes with 2 questions adapted from Epictetus discourses. What do I truly own that can't be taken away? And what work exists that only I can do today? This isn't meditation in the trendy sense, it's a deliberate reclaiming of your mind before the world stakes its claims. The ancient Stoics called it sesessus, retreating not to escape reality, but to engage with it more deliberately. Modern equivalent, the writer who disables Wi-Fi to draft before reading others' words, or the entrepreneur who sketches visions before benchmarking competitors. Loneliness shouts, solitude listens. That's the distinction Stoicism draws. When you're lonely, you ache for others to fill your gaps. When you're solitary, you become the conversation you needed. Seneca practiced this by conducting imaginary dialogues with mentors like Aristotle during his evenings alone. Today's version might be journaling as if advising your younger self, or debating ideas with philosophers through their surviving texts. The goal isn't to reject community, but to arrive in relationships as someone already whole, not a half-person seeking completion. Try this experiment. Schedule a solitude audit this week. Go somewhere public, a park, a cafe, without devices or distractions. Notice how quickly discomfort arises, the itch to prove you're connected, relevant, wanted. Then lean into it. Watch children. They build entire worlds alone before learning to crave spectators. Epictetus was right. We unlearn self-sufficiency, then spend adulthood chasing substitutes. Rebuilding that muscle starts small: a meal without podcasts, a walk without playlists, a night refusing to mistake texts for lifelines. The rewards: deeper relationships for one. Imagine approaching friendships not from need but from abundance, or creating art not for applause but because silence demanded expression. Even science confirms this. People who tolerate solitude show greater empathy, as loneliness often stems from self-preoccupation. By becoming someone whose peace doesn't depend on constant company, you transform every interaction from a transaction into a choice. Here's the secret the Stoics knew: contentment in solitude isn't about isolation. It's about reclaiming the right to define your own worth. No likes required. Zeno of Citium was aboard a merchant ship carrying precious purple dye when the vessel shattered against rocky cliffs, swallowing his entire fortune in one violent gulp. Most would view this as catastrophe, the kind of event that derails lives. But Zeno saw it as liberation. With nothing left to lose, he wandered into an Athenian bookstore, stumbled upon Socrates' teachings, and asked the proprietor where men like that could be found. At that moment, Stoicism was born, not from abundance but from loss reframed as opportunity. This is the heart of long-term thinking, the ability to zoom out until present misfortunes shrink to mere waypoints in a larger journey. While modern culture obsesses over quarterly earnings and 15-minute fame, Stoics measured life in lifetimes, viewing each setback as either fertilizer for growth or irrelevant noise in the grand scheme. Consider how differently we might approach daily frustrations with this lens. A delayed flight becomes trivial when weighed against decades of safe travels. A career setback stings less when seen as one chapter in a 40-year working life. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by envisioning the vastness of time. "Think of the whole universe of matter," he wrote, "and how small your share." Yet this wasn't nihilism, it was perspective. Like an astronaut gazing at Earth from orbit, the cosmic view dissolves petty grievances while clarifying what truly endures. The billionaire stressing over a stock dip and the hourly worker agonizing over a rude customer both suffer from the same myopia, mistaking momentary storms for the entire climate of their lives. This mindset shift carries profound ecological implications. Consumer culture thrives on planned obsolescence, fast fashion rotting in landfills, gadgets designed to break, trends cycling faster than ecosystems can recover. Contrast this with the Stoic ideal of oikiosis, living in harmony with nature's rhythms. Ancient Stoics built villas to last centuries. Today's developers use materials guaranteed to decay within decades. Zeno's shipwreck didn't just birth a philosophy, it modeled sustainable resilience. Having lost everything material, he discovered that real wealth grows from aligning actions with timeless principles rather than transient fashions. Practical application starts with a simple question: will this matter in 5 years? Apply it to everything from impulsive purchases to grudges. That co-worker who took credit for your idea. Annoying today, forgettable in half a decade. The unsustainable job burning you out for a paycheck. Either pivot now or regret the health costs later. Long-term thinking isn't about deferred gratification, it's about recognizing that some rewards are actually traps in disguise. The sugary snack compromises tomorrow's energy. The dishonest deal erodes lifetime integrity. The viral outrage drains years of peace for minutes of validation. Modern science validates this ancient wisdom. Studies tracking octogenarians consistently find one regret dominates: wishing they'd lived less by others' expectations and more by their own inner compass. Not one laments missing out on trending hashtags or clearance sales. This echoes Seneca's letters: the whole future lies in uncertainty, live immediately. Not recklessly, but with the clarity that what feels urgent rarely aligns with what's ultimately meaningful. Try this mental exercise tonight. Project yourself forward at age 80. Ask your future self what 3 choices from this year they're most grateful you made. Then reverse engineer your days accordingly. The Stoics called this premeditatio temporis, premeditation of time. It transforms decisions instantly. That gym session feels less optional when your elderly knees thank you. The extra hour with your child outweighs overtime when viewed through the lens of legacy. Even sustainable living clicks into place. Future generations aren't abstract concepts but literal descendants who will inherit the world you shaped today. The cosmic view isn't passive resignation to fate. It's active participation in a story larger than quarterly reports or algorithm updates. Zeno's wrecked ship didn't mark an ending. It became the pivot point for a philosophy that outlasted empires. Your present challenges, they're either preparing you for what comes next or teaching you what to release. The long game isn't about waiting. It's about recognizing that the seeds you plant now might bear fruit long after the noise of today has faded into silence. Cato the Younger, the Stoic senator who refused to kneel to Julius Caesar's dictatorship, had a peculiar habit for one of Rome's most powerful men. He often appeared in public wearing grimy, threadbare tunics deliberately. While his political rivals draped themselves in imported silks and gold-embroidered togas, Cato's disheveled appearance wasn't poverty. It was armor against the creeping poison of pride. He understood what modern culture has largely forgotten, that external trappings of success aren't just distractions, they're dangerous. Every polished trophy, every congratulatory headline, every sycophantic follower whispering "genius" in your ear is a potential landmine on the path to true mastery. Today's version of this trap, hustle porn, the glorification of overwork as a status symbol, the humble brags about sleepless nights, the Instagram posts fetishizing burnout like it's a badge of honor. Stoicism cuts through this noise with surgical precision. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling the known world, wrote reminders to himself like, "You're just a little soul carrying around a corpse." Not self-deprecation, but sobering context. The person who needs constant validation for their achievements is like a chef who can't enjoy their own meals, always chasing the next compliment instead of savoring the craft itself. Quiet achievement operates differently. Consider the Japanese concept of shibui, objects of subdued elegance that reveal their quality only upon close inspection. A master carpenter's flawless joinery hidden inside a drawer, a mathematician's elegant proof scribbled in a margin. These aren't acts of false modesty, they're evidence that real excellence needs no fanfare. The Stoic version, Seneca advising Lucilius to enjoy your achievements privately as the gods do theirs. When you stop performing success for others, you reclaim the joy of the work itself. The paradox, humility often amplifies impact. Marie Curie kept her Nobel Prize in a drawer as a paperweight. Einstein published groundbreaking papers while working anonymously as a patent clerk. Contrast that with today's influencers documenting every minor milestone. The gym selfie after one workout, the LinkedIn post celebrating a routine meeting. The difference isn't scale of accomplishment but depth of character. As Epictetus observed, if you want to know how much someone has truly learned, watch how they handle praise. Practical shift, try Cato's dirty clothes test in your own life. Next time you're tempted to broadcast an achievement, sit with it privately for a week. Notice the urge to seek validation, then question its source. Was the work meaningful or just visibly impressive? Did it align with your values or just societal benchmarks? This isn't about rejecting recognition. It's about ensuring your motivation isn't held hostage by it. The modern workplace often confuses visibility with value, equating loud self-promotion with competence. But Stoicism offers an alternative metric, the quiet satisfaction of knowing you did the work when no one was watching. The researcher who solves problems that'll never trend, the teacher who changes lives without viral moments, the parent who models integrity when the cameras are off. these are the real heirs to Cato's legacy. Their reward, not applause that fades, but the unshakable knowledge that their light wasn't borrowed from anyone else's spotlight. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his private journals, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyelids." This wasn't poetic idealism, it was a battle-tested philosophy from a man who governed an empire riddled with corruption, incompetence, and betrayal. The Stoic approach to accepting flaws begins with this radical reframe. Human shortcomings aren't personal offenses to endure, but raw materials for practicing virtue. When your brother interrupts you for the 10th time, when your coworker takes credit for your idea again, when the stranger ahead in line moves with glacial slowness, these aren't interruptions to your peace. They are your peace training. Modern psychology confirms what Stoics intuited. Our brains are wired to magnify others' flaws while minimizing our own. Studies show people rate themselves as more patient, honest, and competent than the average person, a statistical impossibility revealing our blind spots. Stoicism counters this with virtue spotting, a practice where you consciously look for merits in those who irritate you, that chronically late friend. Their tardiness might reveal a generous tendency to overgive in conversations. The micromanaging boss, their nitpicking could stem from a deep sense of responsibility gone awry. This isn't about excusing harm, but recognizing that everyone, including you, is an unfinished draft. Practical shift. Try the 3 gifts exercise next time someone rubs you wrong. Identify 1 skill they have that you lack, 2 challenge they've overcome that you haven't faced, and 3 way their flaw mirrors your own blind spots. The neighbor who plays music too loud might have an artistic passion you've suppressed. The critical parent may carry fears about your safety that, in different circumstances, you'd appreciate. Even Nero, the tyrannical emperor who eventually ordered Seneca's suicide, was described by his former tutor as having moments of surprising insight, evidence that light flickers in even the darkest characters. The deeper liberation comes when you stop demanding others fit your checklist for acceptable behavior. Epictetus compared this to a shoemaker expecting everyone's feet to match their molds. The problem isn't the feet, but the rigid expectations. Modern equivalents abound, expecting introverted colleagues to mimic extroverts in meetings, or resenting creative partners for lacking spreadsheet prowess. Marcus offered an alternative. When you wake up, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, but I've seen the beauty of their true nature behind the drama. This isn't passive tolerance, it's active construction of social resilience. Imagine 2 sisters fighting over their mother's care. One dwells on the other's selfish career focus, the other fixates on her sister's controlling nature. Stoicism would have them ask, what's the shared purpose here, loving their mother? Then suddenly, the flaws become irrelevant next to the collaboration required. Roman soldiers from rival provinces learned this in battle. Personal differences faded when defending the legion's unity. The ultimate test, applying this to those who have hurt you deeply. Seneca wrote letters forgiving friends who betrayed him, not because their actions were excusable, but because holding anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Modern research on forgiveness aligns perfectly. Letting go of grudges lowers cortisol levels more effectively than most relaxation techniques. When you stop demanding others change before you can be at peace, you reclaim power no one can take away. Try this tonight. Recall 1 grating interaction from your day. Now mentally rewind it 3 scenes earlier. What burdens might that person have been carrying before your paths crossed? A sleep-deprived parent snapping at the grocery store, a nurse burned out from pandemic trauma, a teenager craving acknowledgement through obnoxious behavior. Flaws often look different when framed as unhealed wounds or misguided strengths. As Marcus reminded himself, the best revenge is to not be like that. Not them, that, because the line between judge and flawed human is thinner than we pretend. Picture an archer drawing their bow with perfect form, back straight, breath steady, eyes locked on the distant target. They release the arrow, watching it sail through the air, only for a sudden gust of wind to send it veering off course. Here's the Stoic paradox. The archer's true mastery lies not in where the arrow lands, but in everything that happened before the wind intervened. Cicero immortalized this metaphor in On Duties, contrasting the archer who obsesses over the target, external and fickle, with the one who finds fulfillment in the act itself, internal and unshakable. This is detachment from outcomes distilled to its purest form, falling in love with the process while holding results lightly. Modern sports reveal this dichotomy everywhere. The tennis player fixated on rankings burns out faster than the one who savors the rhythm of daily drills. Marathoners who run for finish line selfies often quit after their first race. Those addicted to the morning mile keep going for decades. Even elite athletes confess their best performances come when they stop thinking about medals and lose themselves in the flow of the game. The difference isn't effort, it's focus. Chasing trophies makes you hostage to variables you can't control. Judges' biases, opponents' strengths, even weather patterns, but the sweat on your brow during pre-dawn practice. That's sovereign territory. Ancient Stoics took this further with their prohersis concept, the idea that our will is the only true belonging. An archer can control their training regimen, their stance, their focus. The arrow's flight, that belongs to fate. Translate this to everyday life. You can draft a flawless proposal, but client decisions hinge on budgets you'll never see. You can pour love into a relationship, but the other person's choices remain their own. The moment you tether your worth to outcomes, you hand over your peace to forces beyond your command. Practical shift. Try the Archer's Journal. Each evening, note 3 process-based wins, efforts entirely within your control, and 1 external result you're consciously releasing. Today I researched thoroughly. Win. Listened actively in meetings. Win. And didn't check emails during family time. Win. The VP's approval, that's the arrow in the wind. This trains the mind to derive satisfaction from what can't be taken. Your preparation, your attitude, your presence. The magic lies in what happens when you internalize this. Freed from outcome anxiety, you paradoxically improve performance. Jazz musicians improvise most brilliantly when they stop worrying about applause. Coders debug more creatively when they're not obsessing over promotions. Even parenting transforms. Less stress about report cards, more joy in bedtime stories. Like Cicero's archer, you'll find the target often comes closer when you stop straining to hit it. Not because of mystical forces, but because clenched hands make poor guides for arrows or lives. Detachment isn't indifference. It's the fierce focus of a sculptor who loves the chisel's grip more than the gallery opening. Of a teacher whose reward is the lightbulb moment, not the test scores. When you shift your center of gravity from external rewards to internal craftsmanship, you become like Seneca's ideal sage, rich in himself. No wind can steal that. Musonius Rufus stood before his students in a threadbare tunic, hands calloused from farm work, and delivered a radical truth for ancient Rome. Virtue isn't inherited like blue blood, it's built like muscle. While aristocrats boasted of noble lineages, this Stoic teacher insisted excellence was the result of disciplined repetition, not divine favor. His lectures sounded remarkably like modern growth mindset research 20 centuries before Carol Dweck's studies at Stanford. Both reveal the same liberating truth: what we call talent is often just persistence in disguise. And every skill from patience to public speaking can be strengthened with deliberate practice. Consider how differently 2 students might approach a challenging philosophy text. The fixed mindset reader hits complex passages and thinks, "I'm just not smart enough for this," setting the book aside. The growth-oriented student, the true Stoic apprentice, understands confusion as part of the process, circling back with annotations, seeking clarifications, treating obstacles as whetstones for the mind. Neuroscience confirms this. MRI scans show brains physically reorganize when learners push through difficulty, forming new neural pathways that literally make them smarter at that task. Marcus Aurelius embodied this as emperor, spending nights poring over law scrolls despite advisors insisting rulers needn't bother with minutiae. His private writings reveal no claims of innate brilliance, just relentless commitment to incremental improvement. The implications shatter cultural myths about effortless genius. Mozart's early compositions weren't masterpieces, they were tedious exercises copied from his teacher's work. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. What separates masters from amateurs isn't some mystical gift, it's willingness to endure the plateau of latent potential, that frustrating stretch where effort seems unrewarded until suddenly, almost magically, skill explodes forward. Stoics called this ascesis discipline training applied equally to ethics and crafts. Modern researchers call it the nonlinear progression curve. Different languages for the same truth. Struggle isn't proof of inadequacy, it's the forge of mastery. Practical shift reframes self-talk from "I can't do this" to "I can't do this yet." When facing a difficult conversation, a complex skill, or even temper control, Stoics would analyze it like a carpenter examining warped wood, not as a moral failing but as material requiring specific tools. Epictetus, once a slave with a crippled leg, became philosophy's most revered teacher through daily drills in logic and emotional control. His famous classroom wasn't an ornate hall, but a simple courtyard where students practiced distinguishing between what they could and couldn't command, a mental workout regimen more transformative than any natural gift. This attitude terrifies systems built on fixed hierarchies. If virtue and skill are trainable, then privilege loses its excuse. No one gets to say, "I was born to rule" or "I'm just bad at math" anymore. The Roman elite hated Musonius for teaching slaves philosophy because it proved their superiority was performance, not destiny. Modern parallels abound. The child tagged "not college material" who becomes a groundbreaking scientist, the tone-deaf adult who develops musicality through deliberate practice. Even psychological traits like resilience and empathy, once considered innate temperaments, now show measurable improvement through techniques like Stoic journaling and cognitive reframing. Try this tonight. Pick one skill you've labeled yourself bad at, or whether patience, drawing, or calculus. For the next week, apply Seneca's 3 failures method. Attempt it deliberately 3 times, analyzing what went wrong each round without self-judgment. The goal isn't immediate success but pattern recognition. Early Stoics used similar drills for emotional regulation, deliberately exposing themselves to minor irritations to build tolerance. Modern labs confirm this work. Subjects who view anxiety as excitement energy perform better under pressure than those who treat nervousness as a fixed trait. The ultimate freedom comes when you stop measuring yourself against others' seemingly effortless achievements and start seeing every human as a work in progress. That colleague who presents flawlessly likely battled stage fright for years. The serene friend probably wrestled inner demons to earn that peace. Even historical exemplars like Cotto or Marcus Aurelius weren't born paragons. They were ordinary people who chose daily discipline over complacency. The arrow of effort always outflies the arrow of talent given enough time, and that's the secret the Stoics guarded. True confidence doesn't come from believing you're great. It comes from knowing you can get better. Navy SEAL have a phrase that cuts to the bone: embrace the suck. It doesn't mean pretending hardship feels good. It means recognizing that the worst moments often forge the strongest resolve. This is Stoic amor fati in camouflage gear. Where ancient philosophers framed challenges as opportunities for virtue, modern warriors reframe hellish training as mental armor. The overlap is uncanny. Both understand that comfort is overrated and growth is rarely polite. Take a SEAL-first experience with drown-proofing. Hands bound, feet tied, thrown into deep water to simulate capture. Panic is instinct. Survival requires rewriting that panic as data, not "this is unbearable," but "this is how I learned to control my breath under pressure." Every gasp becomes a lesson in oxygen management. Every wave to the face a drill in emotional regulation. By the end, what terrified them initially becomes a skill they can summon on demand. That's the alchemy of gratitude for challenges, not celebrating pain but recognizing it as the tuition for a stronger version of yourself. Marcus Aurelius would have approved. His journals repeatedly return to the image of fire, how flames consume what's weak but temper what's resilient. Modern science confirms this. Studies on post-traumatic growth show that people who reframe adversity as formative, not just destructive, develop greater emotional flexibility, deeper empathy, and heightened problem-solving skills. The key lies in narrative. Two soldiers survive the same battle. One tells themselves, "I'm broken by what I saw." The other, "I learned capacities I never knew I had." Same event, divergent trajectories. Practical shift. Try the SEAL after action report on a personal struggle. First, describe the hardship objectively, no adjectives, just facts. "My project was cancelled after 6 months of work," becomes clearer than "I wasted my time." Next, identify 3 skills the challenge forced you to develop. Maybe patience, maybe creative pivoting, maybe the ability to deliver bad news with grace. Finally, ask, if this hadn't happened, what strength would I lack? The entrepreneur whose startup failed learns fiscal caution. The heartbroken artist discovers deeper emotional reservoirs. Even minor irritations, the delayed flight, the rude customer, train specific muscles if you're paying attention. The Stoics took this further with premeditatio malorum, imagining worst-case scenarios, not to dwell in dread, but to rehearse resilience. Seneca would visualize poverty, exile, even his own death. Not as nightmares, but as drills. When Emperor Nero eventually ordered his suicide, Seneca met it with eerie calm, comforting his weeping wife before opening his veins. Extreme, perhaps, but it underscores the power of preemptive reframing. Modern equivalents might be visualizing job loss to appreciate current employment, or imagining illness to savor present health. The goal isn't pessimism, it's inoculation against life's inevitabilities. Try this tonight. Pick one current frustration, rewrite it as a training manual entry. Module 4, Handling Unfair Criticism. Objective, develop non-reactivity under verbal fire. Drill, when criticized, pause to extract useful data before discarding emotional debris. Suddenly, the annoying coworker becomes your unwitting sparring partner. The traffic jam morphs into a meditation workshop. Even chronic pain, as Marcus knew too well, can teach detachment from the body's whims. The ultimate test comes when you catch yourself grateful for the grind, not in a performative, good vibes only way, but with the quiet recognition of a climber thanking the cliff for the handholds it provided. SEAL don't love Hell Week, they love who they become by surviving it. Stoics didn't celebrate suffering, they revered the unshakable core it revealed. Your challenges, they're not obstacles to your path, they're the terrain itself, and the only way out is through. Seneca once told his friend Lucilius to imagine life as a grand banquet where each guest is served from different jars. Some vessels overflow with wealth, others with talent, a few with charm. "Would you be so childish," he asked, "as to demand the jars be passed to you in order, rather than enjoying what's already before you?" That single image cuts to the heart of comparison's absurdity, the way we fixate on others' portions while our own plate sits untouched. Modern research echoes this ancient insight. Brain scans show envy activates the same neural pathways as physical pain, while gratitude literally rewires our perception of abundance. Yet we still scroll through curated highlight reels, mistaking them for reality, as if someone else's vacation photos could diminish the sunset outside our own window. The Stoic antidote starts with a simple audit. For 1 week, track every social media interaction that leaves you feeling lesser, not just jealousy, but that subtle hollowing after seeing a peer's promotion, a friend's seemingly perfect family photo, even a stranger's gym selfie. Note the triggers. Is it travel influencers while you're budgeting, colleagues flaunting accolades, that one acquaintance whose life seems scripted by fate's favorite novelist? These aren't random stings, they're signposts pointing to where you've outsourced your self-worth. Marcus Aurelius warned against this. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts, not the metrics of others' lives. Practical shift. Turn those triggers into mirrors, that coworker's splashy award. Instead of spiraling into "why not me?" ask, what part of their journey actually resonates with me? Often we envy not the achievement itself, but the version of ourselves we imagine achieving it. The fitness guru's six-pack might represent discipline you admire, but is their regimen truly your path, or just society's loudest prescription? Epictetus trained students to separate admiration from aspiration. If you see someone shining with glory, ask yourself, do they control things within my power? If not, their jar isn't yours to drink from. Here's the hard truth comparison hides. Everyone's banquet has empty seats. The CEO envied for her corner office might crave her artist brother's creative freedom. The Instagram star with perfect angles longs for anonymous coffee runs. Seneca's jars weren't just about unequal distribution, they symbolized the inherent incompleteness of every life. Modern psychology calls this the duplex envy trap. We compare our behind the scenes to others' highlight reels, then assume we're the only ones with unedited footage. Try this tonight. Curate a comparison-proof feed. Unfollow any account that consistently drains rather than inspires, not out of resentment but clarity. Replace them with voices that expand your definition of success. The poet who finds majesty in subway rides, the scientist celebrating failed experiments, the elder sharing hard-won contentment. The Stoics called this prosach attention directed by intention. Your digital world should feel less like a tournament and more like a symposium where each guest brings unique offerings. The final liberation comes when you realize no one drinks from all jars, not even Caesar. Marcus ruled an empire but envied his tutor Rusticus' undisturbed reading time. Musonius Rufus lived in exile yet wrote, "I lack nothing I truly need," a radical declaration that redefines wealth. Your jar may hold less glitter, but it overflows with something far more sustaining, the unshakable knowledge that no amount of measuring can dilute what's authentically yours. Epictetus taught that pleasure was the highest good, not reckless indulgence, but the absence of pain. His garden community sought tranquility through simple meals, deep friendships, and freedom from political drama. At first glance, it sounds almost stoic, but the critical difference lies in the foundation. Epicureans built their lives around avoiding disturbance, while Stoics structured theirs around embracing purpose, even when it caused disturbance. Imagine two doctors. One chooses the specialty with the lightest on-call schedule to maximize personal comfort. The other enters emergency medicine, drawn by the chaotic nobility of saving lives at all hours. Both may live virtuously, but only one has aligned their joy with duty's jagged edges. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, crystallized this Stoic attitude in his logotherapy. Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue as the unintended consequence of dedication to a cause greater than oneself. His darkest moments revealed a paradoxical truth: prisoners fixated on personal survival often perished first, while those who found meaning in protecting others or preserving art through memory displayed supernatural resilience. This wasn't martyrdom, it was practical psychology. Purpose doesn't just make suffering tolerable, it makes it meaningful, transforming agony into something akin to a marathon runner's pain with a point. Modern culture often confuses pleasure with purpose. Endless scrolling delivers dopamine hits but leaves the soul malnourished. Weekend binges of comfort shows provide temporary escape but no enduring fulfillment. Contrast this with the Stoic joy Musonius Rufus found teaching philosophy in exile, or Marcus Aurelius drafting laws between battles. Their satisfaction didn't come from ease, but from the quiet certainty that their efforts mattered beyond themselves. Even Seneca, who enjoyed wealth, warned Lucilius, "Pleasure visited upon a good life is a guest, upon a bad one, a master." Here's the litmus test: does your joy shrink when no one's watching? The Epicurean's quiet dinner with friends thrives in intimacy. The hedonist's lavish party needs an audience, but the Stoic's fulfillment, it burns steady in solitude, a researcher solving equations at midnight, a nurse charting notes after a grueling shift, a parent reading the same bedtime story for the 100th time. Their reward isn't applause, but the silent arithmetic of a life well spent. Practical shift: track your energy after activities, not just during. That third Netflix episode might feel engaging in the moment, but does it leave you energized or depleted? Compare that to the tired but fulfilled sensation after mentoring a colleague or completing a challenging project. Frankl's will to meaning isn't abstract, it's measurable in post-activity vitality. The ultimate freedom comes when duty ceases to feel like obligation and becomes love in action. A Stoic doesn't visit their aging parent out of guilt, but because presence is their deepest language of care. They don't write that book for fame, but because silence would betray the truth within them. Purpose, in this light, isn't the opposite of pleasure, it's its most enduring form. Like a candle that warms the hand carrying it, the act of serving what matters ignites a joy no fleeting comfort can replicate. Marcus Aurelius faced barbarian invasions, political betrayals, and a devastating plague, yet his private journals reveal a mind as steady as a ship cutting through stormy seas. His secret, the inner citadel, a mental fortress built not to escape reality, but to engage with it from unshakable ground. Picture this: you're at a packed airport when your flight gets cancelled. Stranded passengers erupt shouting at gate agents, frantically dialing customer service, their stress feeding off each other like wildfire. Now imagine a different response. You take a breath, pull out your notebook and write 3 headings. What I control, my attitude, my next steps. What I don't, weather, airline decisions, an opportunity, here unexpected time to read, plan or rest. That shift from reactive panic to strategic calm is the inner citadel in action. Modern neuroscience confirms what Marcus intuited. Chaos doesn't create distress, our interpretation of chaos does. Brain scans show that when people label stressors as challenges rather than threats, their prefrontal cortex, the rational commander, stays online instead of surrendering to the amygdala's primal alarms. The Stoics trained this daily through premeditatio malorum, visualizing disruptions not to dwell in dread but to rehearse resilience. Try this today. Schedule 5 minutes to mentally simulate a minor crisis, a phone shattering, a missed deadline, a public blunder. Then draft your Stoic script. If my laptop dies before the presentation, I'll request a whiteboard and deliver it verbally. If traffic makes me late, I'll apologize succinctly and focus on solutions. These aren't contingency plans, they're neural pathways being fortified. Consider how 2 professionals might handle a Zoom meltdown during a client pitch. The first freezes, flushed with embarrassment, muttering apologies as their credibility crumbles. The second pauses, then says calmly, "Technology reminds us human connection matters most. Let's switch to a phone call while we troubleshoot." The content is identical. The container, the inner citadel, makes all the difference. Epictetus, who taught Stoicism in a noisy Roman marketplace, drilled students in this. You don't control the hecklers, only your focus. Today's equivalent: muting Twitter trolls before drafting your manifesto, or disabling notifications when deep work demands your citadel's gates stay closed. Practical exercise: build your crisis response toolkit. Start with physical anchors. A cooling breath through the nose. Stoics called this prosoch, a mantra like, "This too is material for virtue," or even a tactile cue like smoothing your sleeves, Marcus often gripped his toga to recenter. Next, script your default responses for 3 common scenarios. 1. Travel chaos. Delays reveal hidden gifts, time to journal, observe humanity, or rest. 2. Tech failures. Every crash teaches adaptability. What's the low-tech solution? 3. Social friction. Their reaction reflects their inner weather, not my worth. The goal isn't to suppress emotion, but to create space between stimulus and response, what psychologist Viktor Frankl called the last of human freedoms. When a pipe bursts flooding your kitchen, the inner citadel doesn't make you immune to frustration. It lets you choose whether that frustration drives frantic cursing or measured problem solving. History's greatest crisis managers, from Shackleton surviving Antarctic ice to nurses triaging pandemic wards, share this trait. Their calm wasn't the absence of storms, but the presence of an inner structure no storm could topple. Your citadel's blueprints already exist in the Stoic triad: control, perspective, purpose. What's within your hands? How can this serve growth? What does this moment demand of your best self? Answer those, and no chaos, outer or inner, gets the final word. Seneca called anger temporary madness, not just an emotional flare, but a complete hijacking of reason. He described it like a wildfire in dry grass, consuming everything in its path until nothing remains but scorched earth and regret. Picture this: a Roman senator, red-faced and trembling, hurls insults at a political rival, only to collapse moments later from a burst blood vessel. Seneca witnessed scenes like this and saw beyond the drama to the physiology, how rage literally shrinks our mental capacity, flooding the brain with cortisol until clear thinking becomes impossible. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Brain scans show angry people have diminished activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for judgment and impulse control, while the amygdala, our primal threat detector, goes into overdrive. Anger doesn't just feel chaotic, it is a kind of neurological chaos. Now imagine carrying that chaos for weeks, months, even years in the form of a grudge. It's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to feel it. Hierocles, another Stoic thinker, offered a radical tool for dismantling this self-sabotage: his circles of concern. Picture concentric rings radiating outward. Your innermost circle is your mind, then your immediate family, followed by friends, community, and eventually all humanity. Most grudges form when we exile someone from their proper circle, say. A sibling who wronged us gets mentally pushed outside the family ring into enemy territory. Hierocles' meditation reverses this. You visualize drawing them back inward, not by excusing their actions, but by recognizing their shared humanity. Try this tonight. Think of someone you're holding at emotional arm's length. First, name the hurt objectively. My colleague took credit for my idea in the April meeting. Then place them back in their appropriate circle. They're part of my professional community, which is inside my larger human family. Finally, ask Stoicism's defining question: what would this look like if love were my motive instead of resentment? You might still address the injustice, but from clarity rather than turmoil. That's the difference between setting boundaries from wisdom and building walls from pain. Consider 2 neighbors feuding over a tree whose branches damage both properties. One spends years fuming, tallying every fallen limb like a courtroom ledger. The other invites arborists to co-create a solution, transforming the tree from a battleground into neutral territory. Both approaches acknowledge the damage, but only one heals it. Anger has its uses. It can signal injustice and fuel change. But when it hardens into grudges, it becomes a prison with walls we reinforce daily. The Stoic path to forgiveness isn't about pretending hurts don't matter. It's about refusing to let those hurts define your future. Marcus Aurelius, despite facing repeated betrayals, wrote, "The best revenge is to not be like your enemy." Not because he was passive, but because he knew bitterness chains us to the past, while release creates space for what might still flourish. Every grudge relinquished is energy reclaimed for building rather than burning. And in that economy, the ledger always balances in your favor. Seneca once wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius with a jarring calculation. He tallied up all the hours lost to pointless meetings, idle chatter, and mindless entertainment, then declared most people actually live only a small fraction of their years. Life is long if you know how to use it, he insisted, not as a motivational platitude but as a mathematical reality. Picture two neighbors. One spends evenings scrolling outrage cycles on social media. The other learns carpentry to build a child's crib. Same 24 hours, entirely different currencies of time. The Stoics treated minutes like gold coins in a dwindling purse, not because they were gloomy, but because they recognized time's brutal democracy. No emperor could buy back a single sunset. Modern life engineers time leaks with sinister precision. Autoplay steals hours with just one more episode. Algorithmic feeds turn 5-minute checks into black holes of lost mornings. Even productivity culture backfires. Endless hustle meetings that could have been emails, commutes spent fuming in traffic rather than listening to philosophy audiobooks. The difference between poverty and wealth isn't just bank balances, it's who controls the minutes. A billionaire watching the clock during chemotherapy and a barista savoring her morning coffee before her shift might surprise us with who feels richer. Practical shift: conduct a time audit like a Stoic accountant. For 3 days, track activities in 2 columns: nourishing reading, creating deep conversations, and draining complaining, doom scrolling, obligatory small talk. Don't judge yet, just observe. You'll likely find patterns mirroring Seneca's complaints about busy idleness, hours spent in motion but not in meaning. The Roman statesman Quintus Aurelius Symmachus kept an hourglass on his desk, not to rush but to ask, "Does this task deserve my sand?" Here's where Stoicism transcends time management gurus. It's not about squeezing more from minutes, but dissolving the illusion that we're separate from time itself. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now," he wasn't being morbid, he was highlighting the present as the only moment we ever truly own. Imagine living with that awareness. The TV binge loses its grip when you feel grains slipping through your fingers. The grudge meeting feels absurd when viewed from death's perspective. Apply this to digital temptation. Before unlocking your phone, ask Seneca's unflinching question. Is this how I want to spend my life? Not, is this bad? But is this worthy? Sometimes the answer's yes. A video call with an overseas friend, research for a passion project. Often, it's habit masquerading as choice. The Stoic remedy isn't deprivation, it's recalibration. Replace 30 minutes of reactive scrolling with 30 minutes of learning a language, and in a year, you'll have read Cicero in Latin. Swap commute complaints for podcast lectures, and soon you're debating ethics like a philosopher. The deeper layer, recognizing time's true economy. Money compounds predictably: interest rates, investment returns. Time compounds mysteriously. An hour invested in meditation daily might save 10 years of stress-related illness. 15 minutes jotting ideas each morning could seed a book that outlives you. Musonius Rufus left no written works, yet his students shaped Western thought. His currency was moments transformed into legacy. Ultimate test: project forward to your last week of life. Not in vague terms, but vividly: the hospital bed, the fading light, the loved ones gathered. Now ask, which of today's time expenditures will feel like stolen treasures in that moment? The overtime for a promotion no one remembers, or the lazy afternoon with your child tracing clouds. That's the Stoic time turner. Not magic, but perspective sharp enough to cut through distraction's fog. Seneca's warning still pierces. You act like mortals in all you fear and immortals in all you desire. We hoard trinkets but squander dawns. The correction isn't guilt, it's waking up each morning and choosing, just for today, to spend your irreplaceable currency on what makes your soul feel wealthy. Not tomorrow, now, this breath, this click, this decision to close the app and look at the sky while you still can. Epictetus spent his youth as a slave, his body legally owned by another man, yet his teachings reveal one of history's most radical philosophies of freedom. The secret proherses, his concept of an inner citadel no external force can breach. Picture two prisoners in the same cell. One spends hours rattling the bars, cursing the guards. The other uses the time to memorize epic poems, sculpt figurines from breadcrumbs, teach math to fellow inmates. Same physical constraints, entirely different experiences of captivity. That's proherses in action, not denying reality, but fiercely owning your capacity to choose your relationship to it. Modern life is full of phantom cages. I have to attend this pointless meeting. I can't leave this toxic job. They made me so angry. Stoicism illuminates the trap. Every time we say have to, we hand over our proherses like a thief handing someone else the keys to their own cell. Linguists call this agentless speech, removing ourselves as the actors in our own lives. The moment you shift to, I choose to attend the meeting to maintain professional relationships, or I'm deciding to stay at this job while upskilling for better options, you reclaim authorship of your narrative. Consider how differently two employees might approach a mandatory training. The first complains, "Management is wasting my afternoon with this nonsense," their resentment souring the experience. The second reflects, "I'm choosing to engage because there might be one usable idea, and I can model professionalism for my team." Same event, divergent experiences based on who they believe holds the pen writing their story. This isn't positive thinking, it's accurate thinking. Even in chains, Epictetus taught, your judgments remain unshackled. Practical shift, conduct a language audit. For one day, replace every have to with choose to and notice what surfaces. I have to visit my in-laws becomes, I choose to nurture family bonds. I can't speak up transforms into, I'm prioritizing job security over honesty right now. The discomfort this reveals isn't failure, it's the friction of waking up to your own agency. Marcus Aurelius practiced this through his morning ritual. When you wake up, tell yourself, the people I meet today will be meddling, ungrateful, but I choose to see their humanity. The empowerment deepens when you recognize that even avoidance is a choice. The entrepreneur who says, I had to take this soul-crushing client actually means, I chose money over integrity this time. The student who claims, this professor makes me feel stupid, is opting to outsource their self-worth. These admissions aren't indictments, they're emancipation papers. As psychologist Viktor Frankl observed in Auschwitz, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude. Try this reframe with obligations. Next time you feel trapped by circumstances, ask 3 questions. 1. What's the hidden choice here? Even not acting is a decision. 2. What value does this choice serve? Safety, loyalty, growth. 3. Am I willing to own the consequences? A mother staying up late with a sick child might shift from I have to I choose love over sleep tonight. A CEO facing ethical pressure could move from I'm forced to cut corners to I'm selecting short-term profits over long-term principles. The power lies not in the outcome, but in the unflinching recognition that the buck stops with you. This isn't about blaming yourself for hardships. It's about spotting the tiny but pivotal spaces where your will still operates. The cancer patient can't choose their diagnosis, but they direct their energy toward treatment or legacy building. The wrongfully imprisoned man controls whether his mind dwells on injustice or composes symphonies in his head. Proherses turns every "they did this to me" into "this happened, and now I decide what it means." The ultimate test, when you start seeing constraints as the raw material of choice rather than its absence. A musician with arthritis composes for different instruments. A writer in a censored countrymaster's allegory. Even Epicurus found joy in a simple garden while Rome's elite drowned in unsatisfying excess. Your prison walls might be real, but the depth of your inner courtyard is yours to design. And that's the secret the Stoics guarded. Freedom isn't the absence of chains. It's the discovery that you are never fully bound to begin with. Death isn't just an end, it's the ultimate editor. The Stoics understood this better than anyone, turning Memento Mori from a morbid fixation into a razor-sharp tool for cutting through life's noise. Imagine standing at your own funeral, listening to the unspoken truths in the room. Not the polished eulogies, but the quiet gaps, the book you never wrote, the forgiveness you withheld, the adventures you postponed for someday. That's the power of death as motivation. It doesn't just remind us we're mortal, it reveals which parts of our lives were never truly alive to begin with. Take Seneca's famous exercise. He'd end each day asking himself, if this were my last night on earth, would I be content with how I spent it? Not in a dramatic Hollywood-style finale, but in the quiet honesty of a life reviewed. Most nights he found pockets of wasted time, hours spent debating trivialities, indulging petty grievances, chasing approval that meant nothing by midnight. But here's the twist: this wasn't self-punishment, it was liberation. Every unmasked triviality became space reclaimed for what mattered. Modern psychology confirms this. Studies show that people who reflect regularly on mortality, not obsessively, but clearly, make more meaningful choices, from repairing relationships to pursuing creative dreams they'd otherwise delay. Consider two neighbors approaching retirement. One fills their calendar with endless rounds of golf, binge-watching shows they won't remember. The other starts a community garden, mentors young entrepreneurs, finally writes that memoir for their grandkids. The difference isn't energy or resources, it's the silent presence of death at the table, asking, will this ripple beyond you? Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. It's not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it. Not wasting time doesn't mean relentless productivity. It means ensuring your hours align with your why. That Netflix marathon might nourish if you're exhausted. But if it's habitual numbing from fear of starting your art, that's the sand slipping through your fingers. Practical shift. Try the last year thought experiment. If a doctor told you with absolute certainty that you had 1 year left, what would you stop doing immediately? The list reveals your current life's dead weight. Those obligatory parties where you make small talk with people you'll never see again, gone. The committee seat you took out of guilt, not passion, resigned. Even deeper, you'd likely stop postponing hard conversations, hoarding resentment, or waiting for permission to live boldly. Now ask, what's stopping you from making those changes today? The answer isn't time, it's courage. Legacy isn't about monuments or mentions in history books. It's the invisible threads between your actions and others thriving. A teacher's legacy lives in students who think more critically, a parent's in children who love more freely. Even the barrister who remembers regulars' orders creates a legacy of seen-ness in an anonymous world. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all things. Your smallest choices echo in ways you'll never witness, so prune mercilessly. Not just time wasters, but identity wasters, roles you play to please audiences that don't matter. The expensive hobby you maintain to impress people you dislike. The grudges you rehearse like sacred texts. Death strips these illusions bare. When the Roman general Sulla ordered his tombstone inscribed with, "No friend ever served me, no enemy ever wronged me, whom I have not repaid in full," it wasn't a boast. It was a warning etched in stone. Feeding spite starves joy. Final drill: write 3 letters, one to your younger self, one to your current self, and one to your last living descendant. What would each most need to hear? The gaps between them map the work ahead. Not to outrun death, but to meet it whenever it comes, knowing you didn't trade your soul for safety. That's how mortals touch eternity, not by chasing more days, but by ensuring each one carried weight. What if the secret to freedom isn't in catching what you're chasing, but in stopping the chase altogether? These 25 Stoic attitudes aren't just philosophical concepts. They're an anti-chasing manifesto, a rebellion against the exhausting illusion that fulfillment lies somewhere outside yourself. From embracing impermanence to finding wealth in wanting less, from laughing at insults to measuring time like a dying man counting his remaining coins, each principle is a dismantling of the traps that keep us running in circles. Think of them as 25 ropes thrown to someone drowning in shallow water. All they have to do is let go of the weight they're clutching, and they'll realize they could have stood up all along. Here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, pick one chase to abandon and replace it with one stoic pause. If you usually refresh your likes every hour, try a day of posting something meaningful, then walking away. If you're addicted to winning arguments, experiment with listening deeply just once without countering. Trade 15 minutes of comparison scrolling for 15 minutes of negative visualization, imagining life without your hands, your sight, your morning coffee, and watch gratitude ignite like a struck match. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Notice how much energy you've been pouring into pursuits that leave you emptier than before. This isn't about giving up ambition, it's about redirecting it toward what can't be taken from you. The artist who creates for the love of creating eventually outlasts the one painting for applause. The entrepreneur solving real problems sleeps better than the one chasing vanity metrics. Even relationships deepen when you stop chasing validation and start offering presence. So tell us in the comments which attitude cut deepest for you. Was it Seneca's vision of time as a burning currency, Epictetus' refusal to let insults land, or Marcus Pre-Dawn reminders that today could be his last, and therefore his most alive? Hit subscribe if you're ready to go deeper. We're just scratching the surface of what happens when you trade chasing for choosing. The race you're running, you don't have to quit, you just have to remember it's optional.